Hey, it's Rod Yates. Welcome to Mastering Events, an Audience Republic podcast. Each episode, I'll be talking to some of the world's most accomplished event professionals to discover how they got where they are today, the lessons they've learned throughout that journey, and their insights around event marketing and maximizing ticket sales. My guest today is Julian, founder of SEERS, a multifaceted company dedicated to driving innovation and fostering cultural transformation in the world of dance music, live events, and festivals. Michael, or MJ as he's commonly known, was born in Minsk in Belarus before moving to Brooklyn with his family in the early 90s. In the last year of high school, his life changed when he attended Tunnel nightclub in New York, where he truly experienced the thrill of electronic music. It wasn't long before he began working within that community, first as a sub-promoter running guest lists in New York. By the 2000s, MJ had begun building a team around him to promote a weekly club night called Imagine Fridays, before expanding to events in other parts of the US. He was later approached to market a new festival called Electric Zoo, which went on to become one of the world's biggest electronic music festivals. We talk a lot about his work with Electric Zoo in this interview, from the festival's incredible early growth to the issues and cancellations that damaged the brand in 2013 and 2014, and how MJ and his team set about repairing that damage and rebuilding Electric Zoo. We also talk about his work with Elro, as well as founding Grey Area, an event series, content creation, and event discovery platform that brings together artists and fans from different parts of the global electronic music scene, while also helping to launch artists' careers. But we pick up the conversation at the beginning of MJ's time with Electric Zoo and how he came to be a part of the famous festival.
When Electric Zoo was launched, Mike Binger and Laura, who were the founders, Mike told me, like, hey, we don't have any money to pay you. If you want to do it, tell me what it would cost to get you, because we don't really, they put all their money into this project. And I told them, pay me $500 a week, this is already this is now 2008. So I already had the kid, or, was about to have a kid. And I think I already had a baby. And the reason why I said $500 a week, should have said more at hindsight, but I was just really excited because it was a festival. I've never done a festival, like a real festival. Mike and Laura were waiting for years for Randall's Island to become available. And when it became available, they went for it right away, and they were all in. They invested everything. They had their own money. And I remember after the first year, Mike called me and said, we survived. We can do another year now. A lot of the sales came last minute, but how we got there is, I said, I'll do it for $500 a week, but you have to trust me, because what I'm going to do to market is not something you will be very familiar with. And another part of that conversation was, we cannot use the traditional marketing if I'm going in, because that's not what I'm going to do in order for this to work. And maybe in the first year, we still did some traditional. I don't remember. Maybe we didn't. But by the second, we've listened to my advice and scraped everything. And back then, the promoters, they would do posters, mailers, flyers, radio. We just did internet. And no one was doing it. I'm pretty sure up until this day, we were probably the first promoters to use retargeting, because when we did retargeting, neither Google nor Facebook offered it. That was not a thing. They didn't offer it. It wasn't one of their products. Right. We used a third party for it. And we bought massive amount of YouTube ads, massive. And we were paying per click and not per impression. And because no other festival was marketing on internet like that, we were getting clicks at insane amounts, and therefore our impressions cost us nothing. So, I'm talking about serving, maybe hundreds of millions of impressions. Wow. Because there was no competition on the placements and the keywords we were after. We were just everywhere. And then when the retargeting kicks in, we kind of took over the internet. And I quickly realized that we can run ads in other markets who didn't have festivals like that, but we needed to have creatives. And so we would, back then, was very limited resources. Like we had no team. It was Jeff Wright was doing all of it. We started doing, this is before even HTML5, I think. He was doing some kind of animated 728 by 90 ads where like the plane would fly. And essentially we were trying to tell people, come to New York for Labor Day weekend.
Right.
And we ended up selling a massive amount of tickets for travelers. Okay. Massive. And then we survived the first year. And I'm pretty sure that on the second year, Mike called me right before we announced. And he said, we are not all ages anymore. We are now 18 and over.
Okay.
And so he said, how many people do you think we sold the tickets who were under 18? And I said, oh, I don't know. I mean, it's not like we had data. We didn't know, you know? We didn't know back then. It was crazy. And it's like, it wasn't that long ago, but it's just a different world now. And we kind of guesstimated it because we needed to figure out how many more tickets do we have to sell to, 18 overs. And then the next year, he said, well, we survived 2 years, thank you. Well, now we have to do 3 years. 3 days, because it was a 2-day festival. And so we moved in a 3-day festival. And by then, the travelers were real. Like we were getting people from basically all the states because there wasn't that many festivals. And Labor Day weekend in New York was a big selling point. So I realized a couple of things. I realized, okay, if we keep telling people outside of New York, come basically for like a closing weekend in New York and celebrate it in New York in the heart of the city, because this is an island in the middle of New York, Randall's Island, that is very appealing. And if we start saying things like prices for flights are going up, book your tickets earlier, they're listening. And then I've come to a realization, this was probably on the first year, is when you tell people prices going up, you can feel how many people are there willing to buy the tickets because it spikes. And then I asked myself, well, what are the opportunities we have to spike the sales? And I started looking for them, and the obvious ones were things like payment plans, right? So as you are getting closer to the festival, you have less installments. And the down payment was also changing. So we started saying that, like, hey, price is going up. Hey, the payment plan, is going down to 4 next Tuesday. I mean, it's gone to a place where I was like raising prices every other week because we were so behind. Like our goals were so big. Like we were doing, okay, let's do 10,000 a day. Next year 15. Next year 25. And then we did 40. And right. So we were always behind the goals because the goals were so aggressive and the cost was so high. And I realized like, hey, if the festival, at hindsight, I know what it is. I know that people just want to go to Electric Zoo. It was a great festival in New York. And all of this were just reasons for them to buy the tickets earlier. And I knew it then, but I also then considered this to be a part of marketing. Like, that's like the genius of like, promo marketing. At hindsight, it's promotions, right? That's what promotions are. It's not marketing. And skip many years later, I became the person who told everybody, do not do that. That is the worst thing you can do. Like it's okay to outline a couple of milestones, but it was cool for us to say it then because no one did it. And then everyone started doing the same. And a lot of, over these years, I don't want to say people copied us because we didn't create anything, out of this world, but we did constantly sandbox is what I do now. I constantly test this hypothesis that I have all the time, and I don't even do it correctly, embarrassingly enough. Like I don't put, hey, this is the experiment and this is what I'm expecting. It was more like, hey, what if we do this? Let's go and try it out. And so as we were trying things, everybody was following the things, and that always happened, always, which it really made me happy when we did something and people followed, because right. I felt like we did something of value that other people agreed was effective. And I think that with Electric Zoo on the internet side, the first 3-4 years, what we were doing, no one was doing. And we weren't doing anything complicated, but just like custom messages to different segments. Realizing that you can't market the festival to everyone the same way. Different tribes see different values and desires, and if you break it down visually and in your captions, you have a way better chances of convincing them to attend, because you're not just telling the same message to everyone, because that's not going to work.
Yeah.
The early tickets is so much value in early tickets, because the early buyers are going to be your hardcore fans. They've decided to put in the money early enough. Obviously, they're going to be telling their friends to join them. Is going to be a part of their thing to gather more people to come, so they have more fun. But also, the early buyers are likely those who discovered you first. They are probably the ones who told their friends about you first, and they'll always hold it. Hey, I told you about Electric Zoo, and this now in today's world, same can be said about the artists. It's exactly the same thing. People discover the artists, and that, and then they remind their friends for years that they were the first to tell them about it, and it's like a game, which is a lot of fun.
Well, I was going to ask you about early sales, because that obviously one of the trends in the past couple of years has been late sales. So are there any hypotheses that you've been testing out recently, or any activations that you've been doing that have really encouraged early sales with any of your events?
Yeah, in a different scale, it works differently. For festivals, for instance, if we were doing a bigger festival, then you have to really incentivize people with early sales. Obviously, the early bird will always get better pricing, so that's one thing that will never change. You can always guarantee that they're getting the best prices, because they will. Obviously, the festivals are scaled, and the early tiers are limited, and so once they're sold, the prices go up. Any kind of exclusive experience, access to something, even if it's of not a lot of value, people appreciate that. Some people like to do merch. It gets complex on logistics when you have a big festival and you want give people exclusive merch or something like that. But I think, in the end of the day, you put together all the reasons why people need to buy early, and as long as you understand that you can market it correctly. Obviously early people have more months to pay it off, so their monthly payments are lower, their down payment is lower, and things like that nature. From the small shows, with Gray Area, we have a membership. It's a community. It's called Inner Circle, and Inner Circle members, they get access to this Inner Circle pre-sales, and a lot of them, believe it or not, we do before show is announced. Yeah, people buy the tickets just because we have, our way of segmenting and deciding who will receive that offer. We hit the right people with the right messaging, and they are more than happy to commit, even if it's far ahead, even if they don't know the venue, because, this is for the artists that they love and haven't seen for a while.
And Gray Area is obviously very focused around community, building community, if I understand it correctly. And is that a key then to encouraging ticket sales in general? Is building communities around events?
It's a good question. Community is a word everyone throws around and have been thrown around for the past 4, 5, 6 years. I'm myself still kind of seeking what the answer is, but on a shorter kind of landscape, a community is what? It's when you have people that are shared with the same interests, same value, right? You can build it in many different ways. You build it, in our case, by creating content that people will be interested in, listening or watching, and then having conversations. We at Gray Area have something called Gray Area Academy. These are like very, very small pieces of content that create very short but shareable stories. Say an artist is Mochak. I remember Mochak, when we did an interview with him, nobody knew him, honestly. And then a month later, he was a superstar. And in his interview, he was saying how he saw a tweet from John Summit that said, you can't be a house music DJ if you don't use TikTok. Literally, that's what Mochak said in that interview. And he talks about how, he goes to TikTok, I guess makes an account or maybe creates a post based on whatever he thought that John Summit's tweet meant, and he goes to lunch or something, comes back and finds 200,000 views, and that just becomes his rise, you know? So that's an interesting story that maybe takes 45 seconds to tell in a video interview. And so, you know, for us, sharing with the people that's of interest allows these people to tell the story to their friends, because it's quick, short, not annoying, not boring. So creating content can contribute, creating stories, editorial, which is what Gray Area does. You know, it's hard to measure, especially these days. People don't really read, they don't watch long videos. So, it's complicated, but you kind of want to put it all together. So on one side, you have live events, and how we do this at live events is we don't go for headliners, we curate lineups, we give opportunities to new artists, to rising artists, we bring artists for their debuts in the market. We do that all the time. We love doing debuts, because essentially neither the artist nor the fans will forget when was the first time ever they've connected with each other in New York, for instance. It's nice to become part of that memory for Gray Area, for me. And all of that together you got to do, and then you kind of build a community by bringing people together. You know, if people meet each other at your shows, and they meet each other at your shows because you brought in this new artist and you created content, and these people were excited about this debut show, and they knew a little bit of stories that you can share with each other. All of that together collectively, I think, is the only way. There's no shortcut to create a community. It has to be an authentic, gathering, collective, whatever, And again, I get annoyed when people throw this word around, but I like the concept at sort of my age, and right now what I do, the Gray Area is my biggest focus, and it's my biggest focus because I see an opportunity to create that community. It's not easy, and a lot of people don't really want to celebrate your success either, and there's a lot of people push back, and a lot of people will say negative things all the time. People don't like how we curate the lineups, in a way where they don't, because they don't understand it. They think it's the wrong way, which is bullshit. And it's really great. Imagine building something from nothing, and that's what really drives me. And I feel like we are building this new audience, sort of, right? New community of people. We can see on the back end through our data that these are the people that will go to a techno show, a deep house show, an outdoor show, an after party, and so same people, So it's sort of like a gray area where it's like you let people be curious enough to be everywhere. They connect with these people. Now we have this community that they're not strictly dark after 5, going till 5 a.m. after party. They're not strictly deep or hard. They just enjoy being a part of this, and they enjoy discovering new artists, even if the sound is not the same, which is different from, I guess, how it normally is perceived.
Absolutely. Just going to talk about festivals in general. I've seen you've sort of long said that the biggest marketing moment for a festival is the festival itself. What do you think are the most effective ways of capitalizing on the buzz in the immediate aftermath of a successful event?
There are a lot of ways. What we like to do is we would do post-festival surveys. We feel it's really important to get feedback from the community as soon as possible while it's still fresh in their memory, especially if it was success, or even on the opposite side, people are more willing and ready to give feedback right after. So we like to give the surveys. We actually like to reward the survey takers. So then they take the surveys, we'll give them some kind of a code to get their price reduced when they buy the tickets. We feel like if they care enough to take 15-20 minutes to take this extensive survey, they're the right fans. We want to build this relationship with them, and we want to reward them for the fact that they care so much to take that time. Obviously getting the epic photos out really helps. The video, the daily recaps help. The after movies obviously is a big deal. Like with Electric Zoo, we've always had Sirius XM take over, having this daily program throughout was really helpful because it allows us to connect people that couldn't be at the festival. We also don't really wait to go on sale. A lot of people feel that there's some kind of an unwritten rule that you don't want to announce too early. We don't feel that way at all. It's quite the opposite. I like to get the survey out, get the media out. The after movie is not going to be ready sometimes for a while, so you get your daily recaps out, you get the photos out. You go on and you say, hey, 2025 is coming. Here you go. You want the prices to be the lowest. You trust us enough. You had a great time. Go. And what essentially you're doing is, this is your FOMO group, right? Mm-hmm. And the FOMO group will be people that just went and they are ready to go. And people who couldn't make it, but they promised themselves they'll go. There's no need for these people to wait. They already made up their minds. And, you better go and get them now because there'll be weddings, birthdays, other festivals. And if they trust you and they're ready to go, there's no need to wait. Yeah. So you do your loyalty sales very, very early while it's hot, and then you regroup and you go back to your sort of season. It's like a football season or like sports, right? They have the regular season. They have the playoffs, they have a Super Bowl, then they have off-season, they do their trade, signing, festival, the same thing. We've never, 14 years I think of Electric Zoo, we've never had a day off. Never. I mean, the festival happens on Monday, you go out with all of your content, and then, that week you spend getting your survey data and everything else, and then the week after you're planning your loyalty sale, and then pre-sale, and it's 365. At least that's how we do it.
So that's if you've had a positive event, a really successful event. On the flip side, if things haven't gone to plan, if the event has had some issues, and I know Electric Zoo has had several issues over the years, how do you go about ensuring that any negative perceptions don't impact the following year's event? How do you ensure that trust stays in the brand?
Electric Zoo had, this 2 years where the third day was canceled. So up until that point, I never knew how negativity at scale can work, especially social media was different then. It was much more engaging. People took more time to write things out. It wasn't just about pictures. It was really Facebook, really. And people assumed, they blamed us for everything, which, those cancellations were not, it wasn't us letting them down, that they had to be canceled. Those weather issues, those other unfortunate things that happened. And when it happened in 2013, it was a bit different because it took us a while for the first time to get the permission to announce, because it was, we had to work together with the city. And when I announced it, it was already late. It was when SFX came together and got it. That's a whole other podcast. There's so many stories. It was just like, you can really make a Netflix series about those 2 years of SFX and everything, how it was. But the short story, we did it the same way. And we went after the epic content from 2013, and we went after all the great things, because the first 2 days were like record-breaking numbers, and it was tremendous. Like, it was great. It was great.
This is 2013.
Yes, it's the third day was canceled. And so, we went late and we went out trying to create excitement that did not work. People were not, they didn't even give us a chance. And I was like, what do we do? We've produced this really great festival. We had to cancel because a criminal brought in, fake substances, sold it, and people ended up being taken to hospital and passed away. But we canceled it because we couldn't go on and celebrate life when this happened. Like, why are you taking out us? They didn't want to listen to it. 2014, in the end, sold record-breaking low tickets following that. And on top of it, there was loads of issues in 2014 as is. SFX brought in this pink magenta tents from Mysteryland and put it on Randall's Island. So that was already an issue. There was sound bleeding issues. And then on top of it, on a Sunday, we had a thunderstorm and the city made us close. And then the law is you cannot let people back in. So we couldn't let some people back in. And then others, it would be a chaos. Imagine 2,000-3,000 people that managed to be there. They were told to leave and they couldn't re-enter. But everybody else never even got there. And the rain was like 20 minutes. So anyways, we had to cancel that. And I came back and I said, this has to be completely changed. Now, there's no way we're doing it again after what I've learned in 14. People are not going to listen to you. So we apologized. We wrote an apology letter. And I had it signed by all the team members. And we basically said like, hey, we acknowledge all of this stuff. We know you hated it. We hated it. And now we are bringing in this new concept, and it's going to be Electric Zoo transformed. And this is the beginning of Electric Zoo theme era. And I have come up with an idea for it. And I ended up then naming the themes and the festivals for the next, I guess, 5 years or 6 years. But, you know, we had a really good team and we're very lucky to have a couple of key people from Europe that through SFX joined Electric Zoo. And, you know, I had the ideas, our team, my team would contribute to those. And then my colleague and friend Jeff Wright would turn those ideas into something bigger, like a vision. And then we had this Dutch and German company that we would go in and would say like, hey, we envision this, we want to do an elephant. And it's because it's the sound of Manhattan, and the theme that I would come up with was the 6 boroughs, so this is our own borough. And then the Dutch team would go to this German team, the engineers, and they would see how this would work. And it was a collab, and it was really great people on the team, thank God, because, you know, they were smart, creative, organized, and, you know, it took everyone together and everybody contributed. And it was really fun to see how it completely reshaped the brand. Suddenly Electric Zoo became this cool brand with this animal stages.
Right.
And suddenly all these magazines would feature our photos, because during the day, all the other festivals, many other festivals looked the same. And we had these stages, so even when there was no lights or anything, it still was worthy of a photo, because here was this cobra, an elephant, and, you know, octopus, and big bird, and everything else, you know? Yeah. So that created a new brand. Really, we started noticing that people liking us for these animals. They were excited about the themes. They were excited to understand what it means. They were excited to see the stage renderings and the stages themselves, and they were really into it.
Yeah.
And this thematic approach, it gave us an opportunity to storytell, you know, to create a story. It wasn't just a name, and then, you know, the team worked and gotten us to execute as much as we could on that story on site, you know, and that team was a very strong team. It wasn't a lot of people. There were key people, and they just really committed to this. And we have this, my friend Rutger, this Dutch guy, he's a genius of production. I remember every time we had an idea and we would discuss it with everyone, I would call him and I would say, what do you think? And he had one word all the time. He would say, it's doable. That's all he would say to everything. So, yeah, it was a fun ride.
Well, when you think about Electric Zoo Transformed, which was the first sort of themed Electric Zoo, so you didn't have images of all those things you just mentioned, but how do you then market that this is a rebrand, these are these themes, when you didn't have images of those themes prior events? Renderings. We just started making promises. So like what I did is I said, let's write out all the feedback from the surveys. Let's take all the shit that people did not like, and let's make cards and messages saying, okay, we are acknowledging that you've identified this as a problem, and we are going to fix it, and we'll even tell you how we're going to fix it. So we didn't have enough bathrooms, no problem. We got 200 new, you know, porta potties, right? You saying that the bar lines were too big? Well, we've doubled up on our bartenders or servers or amount of the bars. This would be the examples. On a creative side, I believe
we had some renderings, Jeff Wright, Ruther, Jeroen, some other people, the creative and kind of production people, they were really working on that. That's credit all to them. And I think that all the rest of the team and I essentially got Billboard to come in and to do a story of what the Electric Zoo Transformer is going to be, and we've given them some renderings that they've published, and that was like kind of that article back then. I would run ads with that article so people can see, because Billboard didn't run it because it was an organic article, right? They would not make us look good or say good things if they didn't want to. They still mentioned the bad stuff that happened over the last 2 years, even in the article. I don't know why they had to, but they did also talk about the creative vision, and they got the quotes from the team members, and I would run that as an ad so people can see from other sources, that this is from their mouth of sort of them being excited about the festival, and that was like the first round. And we actually we started doing Facebook ads from the artist channels, I'm pretty sure, before there was a Facebook page. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think that Tiesta was the first one, and what we had to do is we had to have Tiesta's team add my personal Facebook login into his profile, and that's how you were able to run an ad from Tiesta. And we would be like, I can't wait to see you in New York for the last weekend of summer with Electric Zoo. And so over the years, obviously, Facebook pages were born for artists. And when in 2015, rather, which is where it was transformed, I said, look, one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to really have to align with this artist and say, look, here's what we're building. Help us use the trust that you have with the fans to help us rebuild ours, because we are all in.
Right.
And we were doing a lot of this ad campaigns where they helped us recreate this hype, and the apology letter helped. We kept the tickets prices lower, much lower that year as a part of our apology, right? And then we started making the promises that we kept. And then the artist ads really kicked in, and then sort of slowly but surely it started working together, and we did 2015 was this big giant bird that I'm pretty sure cost over $1 million and went straight to garbage after the festival.
Wow.
Because keeping it was somehow more expensive, or we couldn't figure out, whatever, those were fun days. And I remember that's when it was so clear in my head. I said to myself and the team and everyone, forget marketing. This is marketing. I could see I'm on site, right? I'm there all the time. People fell in love with this concept. And I know we didn't execute as well as we could that year. So then the next years we're like, let's make it even better. And the team got really focused because we saw the progress, and we would just come up with these new themes, and we would, the artist announcement and creatives would all follow these theme stories, and it worked, and it became this new thing. And when eventually we had to get out of the stage era, from not by our choice, but again, it was the corporate injection, the budgets and politics and things like this. People were complaining for the first 3 years, even though the festival was great and the new production was not bad, it was amazing, huge LEDs, people were still complaining because they loved the themes, they loved the animal stages, they really liked that. So it's interesting.
Okay.
Brand, among other things, brand is, people expect something, and when it's not that, they get disappointed.
Absolutely. We've spoken about some of the digital innovations you've done throughout your career, from the early days, the birth of Electric Zoo, to doing those Facebook ads from artists' pages, as you just mentioned then. When you fast forward to today, what are you seeing in terms of digital marketing innovation or new digital marketing techniques that you're using that's really helping to sell tickets?
To be totally honest with you, I find myself in a place where I'm really unhappy that we are not innovating enough. I feel like no one really in the event space does it. I'm not going to call out the big companies, but the biggest players in the game can't figure out how to sell tickets with unique codes. Like, there's no desire to drive technology, seems like. People are very comfortable, I don't like that. And so for us, we don't see a lot of innovations in the digital world. We just don't, I mean, look, we have the same or similar strategy, how to segment the audiences or how to, custom market sort of to different people, which has not changed much. Sure, it's gotten a little bit easier to do with some of the tools, but the original sort of strategies haven't really changed much. Measuring Instagram and socials, there's no, unless you really go to top level tools, nobody can see insights. They just see what Instagram gives them. Like, oh, my audience is active at 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. But then you look at the chart, they're like the same. So you can't really tell. And, the amount of tools that are available is kind of limited, and they don't really give that much insights either. And it's the omni-channel sort of the optimization of how do you deliver the most value for the artists that you're marketing using all this data. That's complex. And to do that, you need very strong growth marketers, and you have to have your data warehousing done correctly, which, like, even in my case, it's a struggle. It's there, but it comes at a lot of stress from constantly myself pushing for that to happen. Promoters don't make money. They, hello, newsflash, if anybody wonders, we don't make money. And whatever money we make, we invest back into booking artists for shows 6 months from now. So we don't have enough cash, not at independent level, to go and get a CTO and a digital director. So you keep wearing all these hats. And the challenge is when you wear hats at a speed that the technology is moving today, that's not a good approach, because technology is moving fast, and if I'm spending an hour of my time in it today, where is this going to get me? The challenge we faced a lot before was you bring a technology or a digital person who don't know house music or dance music, they are no good. But we've solved that issue, whereas I have my editorial, they can write the copies, they can do the storytelling, and the digital person can just do optimization. So we're working on that now. That's sort of the look in the future. I personally like written content still. We put a lot of emphasis in having enough for the fans to really discover what this artist saw and why we are booking them and why we're excited to book them, and what do we see in them that they should see. And of course it includes the music, and the sets and the tracks, but also their life story and, what else they do, and what their values are. So for me, it's the digital of today is different because, you have all this data, you can retarget it, you can remarket it, you can mail it, you can text it, but you can't do it all the time when you have all the shows being announced. So it really becomes, I think the challenge that should be solved by everyone now is to determine the precise segments you market each show to and how much of it you market to them. There's a lot of value in introducing an artist to everyone, but there's not a lot of value if you're going to keep marketing that artist to people that have not shown any interest. So to put that all together and address it on different verticals of digital is the way to go. But easier said than done. Like at strategic level, I can outline that, sure, but you need a team of experts to make sure that you constantly evolve it. In a perfect world, in a dream world, I know how my digital works, and it will be flawless. And it basically starts with an event being published, and from there everything is done automatically. And I know how to put it together, but I need a team that today I couldn't afford. So, it's just work in progress.
Right. This may be too broad a question, but if you think about the channels that you use for digital marketing, whether it's the meta channels, whether it's TikTok, are you finding that any is regularly more effective at both awareness and selling tickets? And if so, is there particular content that resonates?
This may shock you, but I've made the decision at some point to stop measuring certain things, because unless you measure them correctly, you are doing yourself a disfavor, if that's even a word. Because
disservice, yeah.
You have to correctly measure everything. I see people making critical mistakes, making assumptions what worked because they didn't put the experiment correctly, and then optimizing all the way nonstop, deciding when is the best to post, or sending emails, or making an assumption that the question mark in the subject line of an email worked, but not realizing that they put 49 characters and the question mark was cut off and no one actually seen it, So if you measure it, you really got to measure it, and we just don't measure it anymore. We just don't, because in essence, your marketing is your digital dollars, and my job, in different projects, of course, is different, but talking about gray area, I see my job anyways as to make sure that the artist gets as much value as possible out of us. This is why we deserve to continue working and producing their shows. And we can create that value by putting together a campaign that will create awareness and engagement and lead to real meaningful fans for that artist. And even if they don't buy the tickets to my show, I walk away from every show knowing that I've contributed to this connection, that will pay off for the artist and the fans down the line. It doesn't have to pay off for me, but if I plan to work with this artist, it will pay off for me later, because you do a 600 person show, 1,000 person show, 3,000 people show. Of course, you will be in a better position selling out higher shows, bigger shows, when you've put efforts and marketing and dollars and resources behind this artist, when you marketed their shows to begin with, versus if you were selling tickets and telling people that 87.35% of tickets are sold out and that's why you got to buy the tickets. You contribute no value to them. And then the agents should take 85% of your money or whatever they want. With us, it's different. We're trying to explain to the agents, hey, we are all in with you. We want to build this act. It's like we're losing money on the show so we can make money down the line, but we're not really understood. So.
But you've still got to get an audience in the door at that point. Is that where the education becomes part of your marketing? What you were talking about earlier. This is why you should listen to this artist. Is that the marketing that you do?
Basically. But look, when you get down to it and you're 2 weeks, 3 weeks away from the show, you start putting more emphasis on your assets that are showing why the venues are cool. You put the assets of the full lineup and the value of the support and guests. And you put some of the standard kind of promo reels, but that's down the line. But if you spend the first 2 months marketing an act, and there was 1,000 people interested, and now you served all these impressions and engagement, and there's 10,000 people interested, you will sell more tickets, I promise you, because you build them this audience. But the difference is, you're not just selling tickets, you're building them this fan base, and you're kind of building it together. Because a lot of your marketing goes to your own data. So not only you building them the audience, it's also your community that becomes their fans. This is a great way to grow.
Absolutely. And last question on this. So if you're not measuring, how do you know what's working?
I look at daily sales and I say, shit, we spent $300 yesterday on this campaign. We sold 3 tickets. We tried this new assets. Clearly it didn't work. We don't live in a world where you can wait 3 weeks to see how things go,
Right.
But essentially I look at daily sales. I see, how they trend, and I know what's looking promising and what's looking desperate. And we have created many different ways of making sure that the room is never empty. And, we also give back to the community by giving reward tickets. And we don't do it for the shows that are not selling. We do it consistently. We do it for all shows, even sold out shows. We have much cheaper ticket tiers for those who are more price sensitive than others. We sometimes will offer complimentary admission to certain people. because there's a value that they arrive to the show, early and, start creating the dance floor. Every show is different. We don't look at this as, black and white. And the thing is, if you're gonna measure your tickets, what you're gonna constantly find is that the numbers are not gonna make much sense to you, right? So let's say you spent $300 yesterday and you sold 9 tickets for $20. That does not seem like a win, but it could be. And it depends, are you 20 days away from the show or, 85 or 6, right? Was the day before 7 tickets or 1 or 30? So this is complex. So it is complex. And my hope really, I have changed my desire to build technologies, which I keep failing at, even though the team will tell you maybe we are failing. We still are running ahead of most in the small circle of our industry, at least at smaller companies. I feel like we're failing. I stopped looking at that and focused on making sure that we keep very, very clean and accurate data. Because sooner than later, AI will kick into its full capability and all this tech will kick into full capability. And I assure you, if you have your numbers wrong, it's going to screw everything up because it only can optimize what your data shows. And if your data shows that you are selling tickets at $25 ticket acquisition, it's going to optimize it in the wrong way. That's why I'm very careful labeling what the data means, and tracking it. And at the end of the day, I just know that we're going to spend $5,000 on the show's marketing and we need to sell 800 tickets and I'm not marketing the show anywhere else. So for as long as it works together, I'm happy. To determine what drove the sales is impossible. If you're doing TikTok or Instagram or story or emails, we'll send emails that have thousands of clicks and no sales. We'll do stories, they'll have 11 clicks and we'll produce 8 sales, or vice versa. It's never consistent.
Okay, last couple of things. I just wanted to speak to you briefly about Elro. And I know your involvement isn't as close as it perhaps was a while ago, if I understand that correctly. But I'm wondering if you can speak to this anyway. I'm really interested in the fact that, Elro runs these events around the globe from, the US to Europe to Dubai. And I was wondering how do you tailor your marketing message and content to resonate with the different cultural communities in different parts of the world?
Yeah, I think I'm not a perfect person to answer because when it comes to that part, it isn't me. Though I am there for strategy and some advisory stuff, there's a great team there that does this. However, on strategic level, I know how this works. And it's the same way, we've done things when we're in different markets. It's almost like on the product side, if you buy product in your supermarket, if you're in Texas, you'll have a lot of barbecue flavor. And if you're in different state, it's like that. It's localizing, hyper-localizing. And I think in case of brands like Elro that do shows everywhere, it starts with the lineup, right? The sound is a bit different. Even with Elro in Spain, there'll be some techno at Elro, in Madrid especially, also in Amsterdam with. So yeah, music is different. Obviously, the language, there are local partners most of the time, so you do have local promoters, they have local data and the knowledge, a deeper knowledge of how they do their show. And then you kind of bring your global understanding and experience on how you connect your brand with everyone, everywhere. And, in case of Elro, of course, it's an immersive experience, right? It's this crazy party, it's a festival. So you focus on what is a very specific characteristics of Elro, which is every show is a theme, ironically. And this is my Electric Zoo Day of the theme, and Elro having a theme is a lot of fun for me. I really enjoy that. So you focus on your theme, you explain what the story behind it, what are the characters of the theme. You obviously show the immersiveness and the fact that if you're on the dance floor, you are totally immersed in decor and confetti and all the animators and the acrobats, actors, etc. You show why your experience is going to be different from what they get at a normal or a different type of party. And then you focus on being you. With Elro, the social posts, for example, they're in Spanish and they're in English. So, because it's a Spanish company, and
Sure.
they kept that, and used to be just in Spanish, and then it became, and people can click translation and read it, right? But yeah, I think there's so much fun in understanding how to export the brand. Even at Electric Zoo, we've taken it to Brazil, to Mexico, to China, and to Japan, and there was a lot of fun. And look, when we did in Mexico, and we said, oh yeah, we'll do pre-sale, this is how we do it. The guys in Mexico City said, yeah, 99% of our audience don't have a credit card.
Right.
So yeah, so you run into things like this all over the world, where it's a completely different culture and understanding, and sort of the way things work are completely different. The buying life cycle, whether they buy closer or earlier, all of that shifts, changes, and it's fun to figure out. And you usually, have your local teams that will give you how things work there, and then you kind of add to it your experience of how you do it, and then collectively you get them, the locals, to embrace it, and then you build.
Sure.
But
so
still, in the end, it's just you can do all of that, but produce a bad festival and you gone.
Right.
In the end, really, the moment and the experience is the marketing, and everything else is just optimizing the life cycle of offering the tickets, selling the tickets, reminding them all the sales milestones and how long before the show, and announcing the lineup. All of that is on the road of your goal as a marketer is to create excitement that your core fan base will share with their friends, and that's how you can achieve sustainable growth.
Right. When would the sales for Mexico come in? If 99% don't have credit cards, what was the buying?
There was some kind of a situation with stores. Like, we told people to go to stores and buy it in stores. I think the local promoter printed hard tickets, and they went to stores and bought it in stores.
Right. That's awesome. Very last thing, MJ, have you noticed a change in audience expectations of events and festivals over the past, throughout your career? Have you noticed a change, and how have you had to adapt your marketing accordingly?
Yeah, I think that the bar keeps getting higher. Yeah, so the more other festivals, the more other brands, the more production setup, Eric Pritz and Hollow, and once you see that, right, now you go into somebody else, you expect that as well. I think on the marketing front, as I said, no matter how many years I go back, my strategy has never changed. You have to be all in. You have to be all in on sort of outlining and highlighting everything that you feel that you create that is and should be considered of value, because it's high level, because it's unique, whatever the case is. You wanna put it all out, but then you wanna separate this in different lanes, and you wanna say, well, this tribe, this micro tribe, they like this festival because they have yoga and wellness, and it's in the nature. And this tribe, they like it because it's a mix of house and techno and bass, and they just like all this dance music. And these ones, they're campers, and they really, really are there because they value that they're campers. And these guys are this underground house music fans, and they are there. They don't sleep all 3 days. That's what they do. They party when after parties. And you want to highlight to each of them, if you have all of it, and a lot of festivals do, camping festivals would have everything I just listed. You don't want to go out and say, we are the best and the biggest. No, you want to break it down. And you want to constantly have the campaigns that are, almost custom tailored and segmented and targeted in a way where it's like a movie. And this is what we're building with Gray Area. It's like a movie, like a Netflix series, if you will. You have different episodes, and each episode is saying something, and it's a bunch of the stories, and you watch them, and then at the end, you get it, what this festival is. That's how digitally, in a perfect world, I would like to market everything I do, because then people can pick what they understand better, right? They understand better, but not the same. Not all people want to watch the same series. So you have to outline the series, pick who's going to watch them, and then segment one by one the episodes of leading them to a place where like they love it and they want to go. It sounds almost cliche and like, but that's the way I can explain it, because I can break it down. It's not that complicated, you know?
Yeah, I love that
You just need a good team, and you need to find a way to automate, which is a struggle for us, for example, because you can't hire enough people to do all of it manually. There's human error, and there's just, you know, you have to manage them. It's a lot. We don't make that type of money. But if you have the really good people that understand it, and you can use the technology and automations and you know, AI now, and then this becomes a solvable and challenge, something you can figure out.
Nice one. MJ, thanks so much for your time. It's been so great to chat with you, and I really appreciate you sharing all of your insights.
My pleasure. Thank you.